There's been a lot happening in the news this week.
Joining us via Skype to discuss the media's handling of it all is Katie Halper, host of The Katie Halper Show and co-host of Useful Idiots, a Rolling Stone podcast. How's it going, lady?
Good, thanks. You guys?
Very good.
Yeah.
So let's start with, there was, In These Times did an in-depth analysis of the coverage that Bernie Sanders gets on MSNBC, which is allegedly a liberal network. And yet, when they're not ignoring Sanders, and this is not like our assessment, this isn't just like what it feels like. This is statistical data. They cover him much, much less than everyone else. So they're either ignoring him, or when they do cover him, it is overwhelmingly negative.
Right. I don't know which is worse, honestly. One makes me long for the other one in a way. But and this one, we should note that this didn't include some of his biggest haters. They didn't look at the data from, for instance, AM Joy. And Joyanne Reid is really not a fan of Sanders, although she used to be, but I don't know what happened. She once called him like the moral clarion voice of the Democratic Party. And then she kind of devolved into comparing him to your cheap college roommate who doesn't pay rent and sleeps on the couch.
Wow.
Literally, yeah. Yeah, I know, right? Real sensitivity, by the way, towards anti-Semitic tropes. But it's great to see this stuff kind of proven, stuff that we know on an anecdotal and kind of visceral level. But this is a great piece because, as you guys says, it really goes through it statistically, and it's not a bias. I mean, obviously, to be fair, these people are Sanders supporters, but you don't have to be a Sanders supporter to realize this bias. And actually, I myself wrote a piece at FAIR that goes through how MSNBC's math becomes really challenged. Somehow they lose their mathematical skills when reporting on Bernie. And, they'll literally say he's in third place and Warren is in second place. Like Steve Kornacki, who's supposed to be good at this and a numbers nerd, literally they'll point to a poll that shows Sanders in second place, and they just announce him as third.
Yeah, you know what? I think, Katie, it's just that they cannot compute why people would ever back him, and so they're like, oh, look, like we all are liberal, and we know what it means to be a Democrat, and these people all hobnob with the Democratic elite and all that. And so they're like, they're like, look, Bernie, sure, what he's doing is cute, but this is what the real message is.
This is the real.
That's what I think it all comes down to. That's where their bias is.
Right. There's always this fun kind of game that is like ignorant or dishonest, or I guess in this case, some weird denial that's happening. It's not clear how much they are even aware of their bias. I mean, I think part of it is that, like you were saying, they hobnob with each other and with more elite Democrats and more centrist and corporate Democrats. So they have a distorted view of how viable different candidates are. But I also think some of them are just threatened by him and know that he is fighting for things that they don't want.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it was great in a way. It was disturbing, but it was great because, look, people love to throw around the term gaslighting, and this really is. This is really if you support Sanders or even not. Like, I have friends who are Warren supporters who responded to this MSNBC piece I wrote a couple months ago, and they were like, "Thank you for writing this. I don't support Sanders, but this is just a little outrageous."
Yeah, it's wrong.
Yeah. Well, and it also goes against all of the conventional wisdom of who can win and who's supposed to do well and how voters are supposed to think about these things, and so they just choose to ignore the whole deal. I also want to get your exactly. How about that?
Yeah. Listen.
So I also want to get your thoughts on the impeachment coverage. So the first hearings, we're talking to you on Friday. Actually, the Friday hearings are going on as we're speaking. But after the Wednesday public hearings, look, anyone with a brain and two eyeballs could tell you it was incredibly boring. Whatever you think of these allegations, etc. And so some reporters bravely commented on the fact that it lacked, this was Jonathan Allen, who I liken as a friend, but he said they lacked the pizzazz necessary to capture the public attention. Look, Democrats have been upfront about the whole point of these hearings is to dramatize these allegations and capture people's attention.
Exactly.
So when people like Jonathan Allen were like, it doesn't have enough pizzazz, he got completely dragged on Twitter for daring to be honest about the fact that, it was super boring.
Right, and we saw that with Michael Moore, right? Or Kathy Griffin when they criticized Mueller's performance.
Yes.
I mean, Kathy Griffin's really, resistance TM, and she wasn't even allowed to say that. But You know, this is really related to what we were just talking about with the media bias and also the failed lessons. And by the way, I forgot to mention that I'm very proud, as a Sanders fan, I'm very proud that Brian Williams was the worst on Sanders, because he's really like the least, I don't know how to say this, intelligent person on MSNBC, and he should stick to like lying about being on a chopper or whatever he does best. It's really ridiculous. And his voice, talk about boring, it just puts me to sleep. Like, I should listen to that when I'm having bouts of insomnia. But this is exactly the same thing. We have a denial. We have an inability to see how something lands to people outside of their circle, right? So again, their dinner parties, they are either obsessed with this stuff and can't see that it's boring other people, or they do see it's boring other people but don't want anyone to talk about it. And Crystal, exactly what you said. The people who are mad at Jonathan Allen are the very people who are saying the value of these hearings is to hypnotize and engage and hold the attention of viewers. And if it's not doing that, let's be honest about it. But again, we see this with the Russiagate stuff. They don't care about who takes it seriously or who it's effective on. And again, these are people who claim that Trump is this unprecedented existential threat. So maybe you should look at what's effective.
Yeah, it's a great point, Katie. And guess what? CNN even put this out yesterday. Top Democrats privately admit that impeachment hearings won't move the public needle. So guess what? What's the point of this whole thing?
What
Nothing.
traitors those Democrats are. How dare they?
Russian plans, I think.
Yeah. It is fun for people who don't get to see 80s movies with Cold War kind of language and mentality. It's like Red Dawn to hear these people talking. That's the one fun part of it.
So the other thing we wanted to ask you about is a friend of the show, TYT's own Cenk Uygur, is running for Congress. He's running in that district where Katie Hill had to resign, which is a whole separate issue that I think you and I have talked about. Yeah. But what do you think of this? Do you think Washington is ready for Cenk? It's going to be, I mean, if he makes it here, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because a lot of times people criticize Cenk and the Young Turks for having political, openly political ideas. I think that I've said this a lot before, but, I find it refreshing when people are honest about their bias or their orientation. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think what's scary and what we see in this piece, and we can see at the New York Times this week, I mean, we can see at the New York Times every day, is people pretending to be objective and not being objective.
Right.
So I think I think it's good, honestly. I think that when you wear you go to Cenk Uygur, you watch him and you know where he's coming from. Not to the extent that he distorts reality, but I've always thought that about news coverage, that the most dangerous stuff are Jennifer Rubin is scary and dangerous in her as a person, as a journalist, but at least we know her deranged perspective.
Right. I think you're right, Katie. I think you're absolutely right. And you know what? Props to him, because he's been out there for almost a decade now, just talking about how he's like, actually, the real center is progressivism and all this. It's a purple district. He's going to put it to the test. Not very many people are willing to, spout their opinions and actually put it to the electoral test. Yeah. So major props to him. If it works, you know what? He's been proven right.
Yeah. And it could be game changing. We have a little bit of Cenk actually making this announcement. Let's take a listen.
I will be running for Congress in California's 25th district. I'm going to represent those people in a way that they have not seen before. I will not be a standard politician. I will fight for them. I'm going to fight to get money out of politics, and I'm going to call it like it is. You know what campaign donations are from big corporations and lobbyists? Bribes. They're bribes when Republicans take them. They're also bribes when Democrats take them.
He's going to be a different kind of candidate.
Yeah. It gives me hope. I can run for office too as someone.
Yeah, you should.
You should do it. Make the announcement here.
Yeah, I'm doing it. Running for president. Oh, actually, I already promised Bernie I would be his VP, so I have to.
Oh, right.
I have to stick to that commitment.
Okay, we understand that, but let us know if anything changes for you.
Yes.
Katie, always great to see you.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks, you guys too. Bye.
See you later.
And we'll see you all later today.